And we're in. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well. It's getting hot in LA, so I can't thank you enough for coming by the studio today.
So I'm from Norway, so I, I don't like heat.
No, it gets hot in Southern California for sure. But it's funny, but the city kind of empties out. Like I've noticed just in the last, I guess, July 4th was probably a lot of people away for the weekend, but even like in the last 2 weeks, I've noticed there's a lot less people in the city.
They're all at the beach.
Oh, is that where they go?
Yes, that's where they are.
And
I'm near them.
Are you?
So
Yeah.
the traffic is just horrific.
Oh my God, that sounds rough. So yeah, okay. So everyone's out on the west side.
I don't feel sorry for myself.
No. Ocean view, hopefully.
Ocean view, of course, from a trailer, but it's a very nice trailer.
That's good. That's good. So thank you very much for coming by. I think I've been excited to chat with you, obviously, because you're a friend of Bob's. And Bob and I had a great conversation about life and the afterlife and all these kinds of things. And
Yes.
he mentioned I should definitely catch up with you at some stage.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
And obviously, we can get into all of that fun stuff a little bit later. But I'd really like to start by just getting to know a little bit about you and where you're from.
Well, originally, I'm from Norway. I was adopted by a couple from Michigan, Harold and Bertha Soderquist, when I was 5 years old from an orphanage. I was put there at birth by my birth mother, who was Finnish. She had been ordered to go to Norway by a German officer, and she hid her pregnancy, gave me up immediately after birthed me actually in her room, and her best friend was with her, and they took me to the hospital, and the hospital put me in an underground orphanage, and I couldn't get adopted from Norway after the war.
Really?
It was just ending because of my German heritage. I was half German.
Okay.
My father was a pilot, and he wasn't a Nazi. There's the idea that all Germans were Nazis, and they're not. They weren't. They didn't belong to the party. And I know his name, Hans Bremer, but I've never looked him up. But I did go and see my birth mother and siblings. I have multiple siblings.
Oh, well, that's a nice surprise.
It was a wonderful surprise. And the sister who contacted me, Anneli, has passed after my husband did, and it was a real surprise. None of us expected it, and it was a sudden death. But she is the one who brought us all together.
Oh,
And she was the first one that I heard from, Anneli Rusanen, and so my first name was Birgit Annalisa Rusanen.
well, that's lovely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very beautiful, beautiful name. But when I came to the United States, I wanted to be American. And
Betty something something.
well, I chose Marta because the woman who was sort of my mother at the orphanage and was a social worker who found Harold and Bertha for me. Her name was Marta, and so I always called her Tante Marta. And she was a large woman with like warts on her face, but she was the most beautiful woman you would have ever seen.
She was there for you in the right time.
She was, yes.
Yeah. It's really strange actually, because I'm a bit of a history buff, and that whole Scandinavian era in World War II is something no one talks about. But Norway was leaning heavily on the German side, and all of Scandinavia was kind of a mess. And you're actually the first person I know who was actually affected by that directly, where your mother wasn't allowed to have you and had to give you up in order to go work for the Germans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, she was terrified that she would have been killed had this officer known. That's why she gave me up, and she was also worried that I would be sent back to Germany. To Germany too. I think my birth father's family was quite wealthy, and I think that would have been one of my fates.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, I ended up in the United States, which was the gift that Tante Marta gave me, because I was tested, and I have to pat myself in the shoulder here. I didn't find out until much later that I was tested as somewhat gifted, and so all of a sudden there were people who wanted to adopt me, and from all over, but not in Norway, but because of obvious reasons, but she chose the United States because my birth mother came to her and said, "Everyone wants her. Maybe I do." And Tante Marta said, "I'm sending her as far away as possible."
Well, that's good, isn't it?
Yeah. It was really.
So you went directly from Scandinavia, and then where was your first stop in the United States?
New York City.
Of course, that's where you should. Of course, if it's not New York, you're doing it wrong.
Right. And I flew here all by myself, and I was. I was very confused. I thought that the flight attendant was going to be my mother.
Oh, that is confusing. Yeah.
It was confusing. And then when she held me and they took pictures. The Detroit News took photos of me because my parents were good friends of the editor of the Detroit News, and they had found out about the orphanage from him because he knew of another family who had adopted a boy. And anyway, when she dropped me and said, "Here, they're your parents," my mother tells me that I walked towards them like Charlie Chaplin in the tram, with
the little swaggle.
The swaggle, yeah. And because I think that one of the reasons I became an actor was to deflect. And deflect, just make sure that you don't, you win them over. And so that was, I assume, what I was doing.
Yeah.
And
there's no better way to hide who you really are than to act.
or be the real person that you are. It's one or the other.
Yeah. No, it's a
combination of both, really.
Yeah. It's a wonderful profession. So there you are in Detroit, 6.
Just turning 5.
Just turning 5,
yeah.
Even younger. I mean, a whole new world, new parent. Like, do you remember any of that? Like, I don't remember anything under the age of 4 or 5 myself. I mean, just wondering how good your memory is.
I remember a little girl in the orphanage, actually. Her name was Eva. And she took care of me. She was like a bigger sister, And then her father came home from the war and picked her up. And that was just one of the most difficult days of my life at that time. And, it was traumatic. And then when leaving Tante Marta, so I do remember those. I remember sitting in Tante Marta's lap at the airport. It was a small airport. I don't remember it as being, anything like we have here, like LAX.
That jungle.
Yeah. But I remember sitting in her lap, and both of us were in near tears in that way. And I remember her heartbeat.
Cool.
Listening to her heart. And I will always cherish that.
Yeah. Oh, I bet it must be. I mean, it's incredibly traumatic, but also too, it gave you a whole new chance at a whole new life.
That's
I mean,
right.
It's hard to kind of balance out that kind of trauma at 5 years old versus having a chance to go through that trauma and, live a safer life in North America.
Well, I came here, and of course I had a huge adjustment to make. And I was teased by the boys, of course, kindergarten.
And was that because you how was your English language skills?
I couldn't speak English at all.
Yeah.
And my adopted father, Harold, would who I called Pop, would try to speak Swedish to me because that was his first language. His parents were immigrants from Sweden in the late 1800s, and I'd say I would beg him not to talk to me because I wanted to learn English so badly. So finally, when I was able to put my words together, I would say, "Don't speak dum Norwegian to me."
It must have been really a challenge, like coming here without the language skills and trying to fit in.
Well, my parents were both educators. My father was a professor of philosophy of education, and my mother was a school teacher and a businesswoman. And I think they recognized immediately the thing to do is to put me into some form of expression, and creative expression. So they put me into tap dancing.
Oh wow, okay. Well, that's a useful skill.
Really?
Yeah.
And I was just thinking about this recently, and that I just sort of tapped to my own beat, because I have a picture of me, and all the other little girls are doing exactly the right thing, and I'm just like, dancing to my own, making my own beat up, and just making my own music with my feet.
And of course, you got a pass because you were born in Scandinavia, not in Michigan. So you were the exotic one.
Yes, very exotic. I couldn't speak with my voice, but I could speak with my feet.
Oh, that's nice. I mean, it's like, it's like anything for kids. You got to get them doing something, I guess, right? Like it's either sports or some kind of. I got into sports at a really young age. Like my dad was an Olympian. He was in the '72 Olympics. So from like the age of 2 or 3, I was like swimming, skiing, like just involved in outdoor activities all the time, and it kind of carried on. And then I played basketball, and that was my way of not getting into trouble and letting out all the steam and the chaos of being a teenager.
Exactly. Oh God, a teenager, forget that. The Twilight Zone.
Yeah. So what was it like going to grade school and then high school in Michigan as an immigrant?
Well, I didn't do so well. I mean, of course, kindergarten was difficult, and so
we won't hold you to any kindergarten records or scores or test results.
Thank you. But they put me into a private school for, I think it was a semester, a Lutheran school, and it was so rigid and so punitive that I pretended one day that I had mumps. I just said, I blew myself up, and
you got to put the walnuts in. Yeah.
I don't know. Of course, they didn't believe me, but they never let on that they didn't, and so they saw that something was obviously terribly wrong, and that I didn't want to go back, and so they didn't make me go back. But when I went then they put me into public school the next semester, but they made me go into the next grade because the education was good in the Lutheran school. Mm-hmm. And so I was always younger. Now I was younger, and I could barely speak English. But I adjusted. I adjusted. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but something was pushing me.
Well, that's nice because Michigan's not the most cosmopolitan state in the lower 48.
No.
And coming from an international background and again not speaking English, it must have been much harder to kind of, in New York you have people from all over the world, and Miami you have people from South America, and a lot of them don't speak English but they speak Spanish. And here you are, this little girl with no English language skills, to this cold, nasty Michigan winter probably, and here you are trying to figure out how to get through a day.
Well, I was used to winters, of course, Norway being the land of the rising sun. And the adjustment, my parents were so wonderful that the adjustment wasn't so difficult. And as I said, they put me into acting, they put me into into dance and music lessons, and they kept me so busy I couldn't think. I couldn't feel sorry for myself.
Did they have any artistic backgrounds or passions?
Not at all.
So they just figured like that's got to be her.
Yeah, it's true.
That's great though.
It is. It's amazing how well they were older. I was adopted when my father was in his early 50s. My mother was 48. And my father is 52.
Oh, well, that's quite late, yeah. So those wouldn't have been like birth parents, because most women don't have the opportunity to give birth into their late 40s like that.
That's right. And so they were very, they were very, they were I guess you could call it just very intuitive and very receptive to whatever the skill that they saw I had and the need that I had to be maybe somebody else, pretending. And that's where I lit up. And also, they had me read a great deal. I read and read and read. And so giving me the opportunity to not only escape into theater and dance, they also gave me the opportunity to escape into books and live other lives in those books. And I still read. Reading is, I'm sorry that people aren't reading books anymore, because to me, I love a book. I mean, a computer is one thing, a laptop, phone, but a book itself, I can hold it, I can smell it, I can, lick pages, and move it along and look back to it, and they become my friends. In fact, I did a lot of trekking with my late husband, and I would always take a group of books with me. And I was traveling in India, and I was reading, with the joy of, what is it? Anyway, it's about India, the British leaving in India, and he gave it away to somebody. I had finished it, and he gave it away to
that bastard.
I said, how could you? Dare you? Anyway, so yes, what they did was they created a foundation for me from which to grow and to fill my brain with things, with good things, with things that were informative and magical, and so I hope I did that for my daughters, and I hope and I'm hoping I continue that in my own small old life.
It's nice to think like that people can still have a career in the arts, and I think that there's people aren't reading anymore, or they're watching too many fucking podcasts and stuff like this, damn podcasts.
Damn, yeah.
Or they're watching a lot of TV now. There's it's TV everywhere, and YouTube is a big thing. But you're right, like it's nice to think that people can still like have a career as an actor or want to do something in singing without having to first go to social media or become some kind of like star for doing something funny for 10 seconds at a time.
Yeah.
Like how about you go on stage and hold an audience for an hour? Like that's a fucking skill.
That's a skill. Oh man, and it's a wonderful, amazing, euphoric skill. I mean, I did a play called Wings, which is about a woman who had a stroke, and she had been a wing walker, and it was almost 90 minutes of me, and it was just so fulfilling and inviting, and to be able to go on that stage every night. And I was at one point while I was studying for it, I went to the Daniel Freeman Hospital and they allowed me to sit in on the stroke victims meetings, which was very kind of them. And what I found out about them, and what I grabbed onto immediately, was that they had this amazing sense of humor.
Oh, really? That's not what you would expect from stroke victims.
No, not quite.
Yeah.
But they could laugh. They were laughing with each other at their mistakes, and it was very therapeutic for them and for me to see that. And so that amount of courage and that strength and that humor, I was born into my character. I mean, it just filled my character with the understanding that it wasn't something that was just so, debilitating. It was something that you worked through, and then finally you get there.
And have a sense of humor about.
And have a sense of humor about it the whole time.
I don't know, if you can't laugh at yourself at some stage in this world, you're doing it wrong, right? Obviously, having a stroke is an extreme example of that, But if you can't take yourself lightly at your darkest moments, then you're taking yourself probably too seriously.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
That's definitely true.
So as a young aspiring artist, multidisciplinary artist in Michigan, what were your options like in Michigan? Like, what made you want to leave Michigan and you take your art and take this passion you had for acting, to a bigger platform?
My parents took a sabbatical from teaching. My father to write a book about Kierkegaard, and my mother had relatives, a sister here in Los Angeles, and so we got in the 1956 Ford station wagon, black and white with red interior, and we drove to California.
Magical. How old were you then?
I was 15.
15.
And I was crying the whole way. All my friends. But the closer I got to California and the further from Michigan. By the way, I love Michigan. I was so happy to be raised there. I played softball all summer long. I climbed trees. My father built a slide between two wonderful elm trees. And I played Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. I did theater. I danced. I wrote plays for the 6th grade. And they were the worst, god-awful plays. But, the school let me put them on.
Those wonderful teachers let you put on those terrible plays.
And so I'm not dissing Michigan. I mean, there was a great wholesomeness, I have to say, to where I grew up. And but the further I got away and the closer I got to California, I began to, my tears dried up and I began to think, oh, there's got to be community theater there. There's got to be really good community theater. And so we arrived, found an apartment, and I started community theater.
At 15?
At 15. And we were meeting in somebody's house, and then we would find a stage somewhere where we could put up our shows.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, Our Town was the first one I did.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Which role did you play?
Oh, the young girl. What was her name?
I can't remember.
Not Emily.
Yeah.
Emily? Anyway, so then I went to Santa Monica High School.
Mm-hmm.
And
was that just for the sabbatical? Like you came out here at 15 just for a year?
For a year.
And you were going to go to Santa Monica High School just for a year and then go back to Michigan?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's just
Yes.
that's just a tease.
I know.
Because once you feel the sunshine out here, it's really hard to go anywhere else.
That's true. But what I found, again, is this strength to break into the theater department not break in, well, that sounds odd, but to try and inveigle myself into the theater department at Santa Monica High School and the music department. And so the head of the band, the school band, who would play at dances and things, had a singer. And I went to the principal and I said, I would like to sing with the band,
Yeah. Get in line.
Yeah. Well, that's what the music director said to me, get in line. And so I went back to the principal. I said, he said, get in line. And so they made him allow me to sing one song.
Well, that's fair enough, right?
I had no rehearsals.
Yeah.
And I sang Blue Moon. Well, no, you nod, but that's not an easy song to sing without rehearsal with a band that you had no idea, their accompaniment was completely different from how you had rehearsed it.
I'm totally tone deaf, so I appreciate all of that. I have no musical capabilities at all.
I'm glad to hear that.
Okay.
I think. Anyway, so I sang Blue Moon. It was a bit of a disaster. I said, well, I'm never doing that again. But I got into the debate club. I got into the forensics. I did a reading which I thought was my own choice, but I found to be now very interesting and curious that I decided to read from All Quiet on the Western Front.
Mm.
when the young soldier comes back to visit his mother.
Oh, wow.
And it's and I won contests all up and down the coast in California with that reading. And I think it's because it doesn't have to be male or female. It's just about, he says, "Oh, mother, mother, why can't I lie down and die with you? Because she's not well." And, it's that whole connection to your mother and how important that connection is.
And it's timeless and genderless.
Timeless and genderless. And that I chose it, and I never thought twice about it. And in a way, it's sort of thinking out of the box, And so that so I did all of that, and I was in the the talent show. I did a dance and song and dance thing with all these different hats, a cappella. I mean, must have been really terrible. But I did it anyway. You just have to, just
do everything.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it, as the saying says.
It's funny. So it kind of sounds like your trip to California at 15 for a year was kind of like an artistic awakening. I mean, it seems like you were already very excited about the arts before that. But I think when you got out here, it sounds like you just tried. There was more options than available back home.
What happened was that I was sitting at a Jewish deli in Santa Monica called...
There's none of those.
There's none of those in L.A. Called Zuki's. And Zuki's now is a landmark. They can't take away the sign, the Zuki's sign, because...
It's not a Lululemon or something like that?
No, it's an historical landmark now. Anyway, not because of me, but because I was sitting there with a friend, and I was eating spaghetti. I mean, what did I know? And instead of pastrami, which I should have been eating, and a man came up to me and said, "Are you interested in acting?" And I said, "I've never been interested in anything else."
That's a great reply.
Yeah. And he said, "My name is James Harris. I'm producing a film with Stanley Kubrick called Lolita." And I said, I perked up immediately. Yeah. I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "I would like you to test for it." And I said, "Test?" And he said, "Do film test."
No, you're like, I get roles without auditioning. That's how I roll. At 15.
15. Well, he said, "Your parents you live here?" And I said, "Yes, well, my parents are teachers." And he said, "Well, I think they should read the book." And he said, "I think maybe you should read the book." I said, "All right." And my parents read the book and said, no, that's not what we want for Birgit, Marta. No. And but he came over to our home, our little apartment on 11th Street in Santa Monica. And he loved my parents.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, and loved me enough to find me an agent.
Oh, wow.
And one of the top agents in Hollywood.
Out of a Israeli diner, you found a producer and then an agent.
I know. It does sound a little absurd, doesn't it?
Well, that's the stuff of Hollywood magic, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, that's incredible.
And so from there I started working. Actually, my parents knew a woman named Ruth Roman, who was Loretta Young's assistant. So the first piece that I got was in her anthology show, and I played the daughter of 2 alcoholics. And I remember I had like a 4-page monologue where I'm at a Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I'm talking about, my parents.
4-page monologue.
4-page monologue.
So here's a question. Like, you and your family come out here for a year on sabbatical. They're on sabbatical, and you're here to explore your artistic desires. And this producer comes up to you and says, "Hey, you could have a career here." And then he introduces you to an agent who also says, "Hey, you could have a career here." So what are your parents thinking at this stage? I mean, are they like, oh my God, like, we're gonna have to move to LA, or were they like, "We'll leave her here, but we got to go back to Michigan. Like, what was that conversation like? Because nowadays I'm amazed, and I don't know if this happened in your era, but it definitely happened in my era with parents who are my age or older. People uproot their whole lives for their children to pursue, artistic or even athletic pursuits, because if you make it, there's a lot of upside to it, right? So people are willing to uproot their families and move all the way across the country just to play on a certain team or be part of a certain theater group or something like that. So I'm curious, what your experience was like.
My parents went back. I said, you couldn't drag me. I'm nailing my feet right here to the ground.
That's what I wanted to hear. Huh.
And my mother did stay with me for a couple more months after the year sabbatical was over, and to establish, I stayed with my best friend's mother and my best friend. And what they didn't know was that my best friend's mother was a terrible alcoholic.
Oh, wow. Just like your monologue.
I hadn't put those two together.
You had real life experience.
It was meant to be. But it was a little early to
be away.
Yeah, but I did not want to go back, and my mother saw that, and my mother talked my father into allowing me to stay.
I think that's a great thing that people like. I think when you have older parents, and like you did, I mean, your foster parents adopted you while they were at a later stage in life. But I just feel like being a parent. I'm not a parent, so I'm speaking hypothetically or through the experience I've had of my friends who have children. But being a young parent is really hard because, like, if you're in your 20s, like, you don't know shit. Like, you don't know who you are. You don't know what's going on. And then now you've got a child, and you don't know how to be a parent, and you're trying to figure all this out at the same time. Like, it's got to be daunting. By the time you're in your 40s, at least you have a bit of a grip on who you are and a little bit of a grip on how the world works. But I think of myself in my 20s, and I think, oh my God, like, if I had a child in my 20s, what kind of father would you be, or what kind of parental figure? Like, because you're just a mess. Like, I'm just amazed how so many young people are having children and somehow surviving the whole experience that our society creates for young people, because it's very hard. I mean, having parents that are older, wiser, more aware of your needs and your desires, I think would be really beneficial.
I think in a way, at times I thought, recently I thought, well, they just wanted to get rid of me. I was emotional, but no, that they saved my life really in more ways than one. And yes, I think you're right. They really were very open to what my needs were, and I think had it been the timing would have been right, they might have moved to California, and but my father had to go back, and he publishing a book, and which was used throughout the United States as a textbook called the Person in Education, and my mother also had a life, and so they left, and as I said, I'm not sure that was a great idea. I think that, having been abandoned so early in my life, and then having 10 years essentially with them, and then being on my own again when I was 16, it was tough.
Yeah.
And
there's a huge difference between 16 and 18, isn't there? Like,
huge.
Yeah.
Huge. And I got married very early to a psychologist who was 8 years older. And I would never have done that. I think if I had felt that I had a certain base. I mean, I graduated from Hollywood Professional School when I was 16, went to UCLA for a semester, and then started working so much that there was no reason for me. I mean, I couldn't do both. And
that's wonderful, though, higher education's, I guess, important, but I mean, if you're on a path and you have the chance to take that path, that's wonderful that you were so in demand.
Yeah.
At 17, 18, 19, that you were working so much you couldn't go to school at the same time.
Well, remember, there were only 3 networks.
That's right. with 50 million people watching every night.
The Dumont network, I guess, was gone by then. And anyway, that was, so there were 3 networks, and I did almost every show on television. If they needed an ingenue, I didn't have to even audition. They would just call me. My agent would call me and say, can you, here's the script. I'm sending you the script. Can you, read it to see if you want to do it?
What was it like being an 18-year-old woman on a film and television set in Hollywood? I mean, that must have just been otherworldly.
It was scary to some degree, because, well, no, I wasn't scared. I was scared of, I was shy and I was scared of the people. But once I started acting, once I got, in front of the camera, I forgot everything else. And again, it was the escape that I was longing for.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I was, it's weird. I was never afraid on the set. I always felt that I was capable. And I think my parents gave me that.
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt that I was sort of the master of my own fate.
Well, that's your comfort zone, right? Because you spend so much time on stage, you spend so much time performing in front of people, so that's your go-to safety zone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The rest of the world's a fucking mess. But when you're on stage or in front of a camera,
the rest of exactly. Oh, you could be a psychologist, my friend.
I had a similar sporting experience, so I felt very comfortable playing sports and being on the court and being in pressure situations. But like the rest of normal life was confusing to me in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah.
Because it's just like when you spend 6 or 8 hours a day playing basketball on 2 different teams, shuttling back and forth, practicing, playing multiple games on weekends and stuff like that. That's just your go-to, happy place.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That was my happy place.
And the rest of the world is just confusing.
Yeah, they're all nuts. Everybody's nuts. But when I'm up there, when I'm in front of people, when I'm acting, there's nothing else.
So what was the scene like in your early days? I mean, this would have been, did you get a chance to? Here's the real question: when you were in Michigan, were you watching television, being like, someday I want to be on television?
No, but I loved watching television. But it was what is it? Sky King, and so I loved westerns,
mm-hmm.
and I loved horses. Even as a kid, I tried to save enough money to buy a horse. I got $35, I think. I had started my own little newspaper. One thing I didn't realize about was the business of running a newspaper. No, you need advertisers.
I ran a little newspaper. I delivered newspapers. Actually, I didn't run a newspaper. I delivered newspapers. That was my claim to fame.
Well, I had one of those little gel things where you write everything by hand, and then you put it on the gel, and then you just have to you just you write it with a certain ink. And anyway,
early day printing presses.
Well, it wasn't quite the stone and chisel, but it was close. But I had where were we?
Well, you were saying like you weren't watching TV in Michigan and being like, that's going to be me in 5 years, because that's a lot of people I chat with, they see movies and they're like, I want to be on the movies, and they see TV and like, I can do that, right? But you came here and you just had this like explosion of artistic potential and possibilities, and then had a chance to pursue it professionally, in film and television. And I'm just curious, like, where that film and television was in your head in the early days, like whether it was something like where there was a driving force, like I want to be in film and television.
Well, it's interesting you ask that, because frankly, I didn't have that dream. It was wonderful that Stanley Kubrick was, thinking about me or James Harris was thinking about me for Lolita. But my dream was always to act. And whether it was on stage or whether it was in television or movies. And so it wasn't something that was burning a hole in my heart, that I had to do that. It was I was just extraordinarily lucky, and I had the fire. I had the fire to act, and no matter, as I said, no matter what venue. And so I would have. I think once I got into it, it was very nice, and I would have liked to have gone further in my career, and I would have loved to have been, well, people like Meryl Streep, but but life got in the way eventually, and that was okay. I would. People ask me, would you do anything over again? And would you want to be Meryl Streep or, great, Helen Mirren? And I'd say that would have been good, but no, I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, if you're sitting where you are today with a smile, then changing your past would ruin that, wouldn't it?
Probably. I wouldn't be getting a divorce at my age.
But your 7 Oscars would look beautiful. So let's go back to Hollywood, in your late teens and 20s. I mean, what kind of roles were you getting? I'm just curious, like what kinds of movies or film and television were they making, and how did you kind of navigate this space?
Well, a couple of favorite shows that I did was, one was a Wagon Train, because I loved Westerns, but I play a psychic. I play someone who can read other people and they think I'm a witch. And so they try and baptize me, and I'm just seeing all these things going on, and the bad guy realizes that I can, I know what he's going to do, and it was a wonderful challenge to bring that into my life and to figure out how I could portray her honestly, and another one was I played on The Greatest Show on Earth with Jack Palance and Stu Irwin, and I played a high wire walker who was a klutz on the ground, and it was comedic in so many ways because I did little pratfalls and things like that, but I loved the idea of it, being so skilled up in the sky,
mm-hmm.
and
another metaphor for your stage persona.
Very good. Very good.
I'm seeing some connections here. That's interesting. For me, it boggles my mind how you can be in LA, in Hollywood at 18, 16, 17, 18, no parents, and working in mainstream film and television. Did you notice? Did you realize like this is not normal?
Nothing has been normal in my life, so one more thing. But
I just feel like these days, celebrities, actors. I mean, there's a huge difference between a celebrity and an actor, but actors who are also celebrities, there's so much attention on them, and with social media, they're broadcasting their whole life every day. But you went through that level of fame and that level of exposure. People knew who you were. Like, what was that like at that time with no parents, and you're in La La Land, and you've got a career, and you're making your own living. Like that to me is ridiculous. And again, it's because when I was 18, I was a meathead. Like, I was playing basketball, chasing girls, whatever, but like I wasn't ready to have my own career or have an agent or have the responsibility of learning my lines and showing up on time and all these things. Like, I just wanted to go out and drink and be silly, right?
Right. Well, you were a boy. It's different.
Yeah. You were a little more structured and probably a lot more responsible.
I didn't know how responsible I was. Well, no, I was very responsible, and I always showed up on time. And I was driving a 1957 Ford convertible around town. And the responsibility that I had was very, very heavy, but I didn't feel. I felt that this was my path, and that if I wanted to have something, I had to work for it, and so it became something that I had no difficulty doing. I just. It's just showing up knowing your lines and knowing who you are, the character, and I never had a problem finding my mark. Never had a problem, repeating my gestures in the same way so that they could match them. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It was sort of like I was, somebody, leading me and guiding me the whole time.
Well, so again, I can only speak in terms of athletics and not artists, but a lot of times athletes say like when they're in their comfort zone and they're in a familiar environment, like when they're doing their sport, they just have a comfort that comes over them. They relax. Everything becomes completely intuitive. You don't have to think about anything. Their movements become very smooth. So, you found your space.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, like doing theater, I still do theater, but every time before I go out, I go, oh God, I'm gonna vomit. Oh my God, and I try, and I do a breathing exercise and I do Tai Chi, and I'm still gonna vomit. But once I get on that stage, there's nothing else.
Yeah.
There's something that soars in my body. It just, it flies. Another flying.
Or fly. Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, well, what happened was that the longer I continued to work, all of a sudden this television series was offered me. Oh, and by the way, I'd also done Beach Blanket Bingo.
Okay, yeah, that was famous.
That was famous. I played Lorelei the mermaid, and a part of my research in doing that was...
You played a mermaid?
I played the mermaid played Lorelei the mermaid. And I thought, well, that was just Hans Christian Andersen's, it's borrowed from that. But then I found out that Lorelei means murmuring rocks. And there is a Lorelei that is a statue of Lorelei the mermaid on the Rhine, on this rock that is this huge rock that's supposed to be some kind of thundering rock. And so I did some of my research, but Lorelei in Beach Blanket Bingo wasn't a thundering mermaid. She was it was a lovely part, and it was part of the genre of the beach party movies during that time, but it was also in the 60s, early 60s, and there was all kinds of things going on in social society but then there was the space program.
Oh yeah, of course.
Irwin Allen called my agent, said, "Is Marta Kristen available?" Now they were testing other women, the young women, and they said, "Well, why don't you meet her?" So I, dressed in my finest bright pink boucle suit and big earrings, and Irwin just loved me, but it was the pink suit and the earrings. He knew I could do the work, but he really liked the earrings. I think he said, "I want that girl with the earrings,"
and he sent you to space.
And sent me to space. Now I didn't want to do it. I did not want to do the show. I thought, you see, this is what we were getting to earlier. You choose what avenue are you going to take that in your life that is going to lead you to where you want to end up. Now, I had wanted to go to New York. I wanted to do theater there. I had dreams of even earlier going to Juilliard, and I think I could have gotten in. I had done enough theater to bring something to it, but my agents kept calling and calling and calling and saying,
"You were a workhorse. You got to put the
get the And Irwin and I had the same agent, and so they felt they could do a package deal. And Irwin would call me, and because I kept saying, "No, I'm not doing this. I'm not. I'm just there are 8. I mean, how many people in the cast? And I mean, there's I'm just going to be the blonde in the background."
What was the name of the show again?
Lost in Space.
Right, and this was an ensemble cast of 8. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, it was. Let me see. There were 3 children and 2 the parents, and then Don West, Major Don West.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was married at the time to the psychologist, and he wouldn't talk to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Because you were too busy?
No, because I wouldn't say yes.
Oh, really? Because you thought...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, money, chance of a lifetime, do it, And I'm saying, no, I have other dreams. I have other dreams, Terry.
Because you were worried about being pigeonholed as a Hollywood blonde actress?
Yes.
Yeah.
And which was wise of me.
Mm.
But I finally said yes. And when I was driving to the studio, I was thinking, let me see, Orphanage, Michigan, Hollywood, 20th Century Fox. Not bad.
Not bad. Yeah. I see an upwards trajectory. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so I walked onto the set, and there was Hollywood. All the blinking lights on this. I mean, the set was just stunning. And all these people moving around and busy. And
that was a huge show.
Huge show.
Yeah.
It was the most expensive pilot ever made.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And it was, aside from, it wasn't Flash Gordon, but it was another, something, Video Rangers or something like that was done in the early 40s, I think. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we were the first family sci-fi adventure series on television.
And how long did that run for?
We made 83 episodes in 3 years.
Did you even see your husband?
No, thank God. 83 episodes,
yeah.
And that was 5 days a week, and on Friday nights, of course, we stayed very late, but we became a family in many ways, and the show had a moral compass, which is probably what drove it. It was an adventure sci-fi series, but it was about family.
Yeah, and those always do well.
They always do well.
Yeah, when there's something just underneath the surface that's warming people up.
It's not overt by any means. I mean, there are monsters, there's, crash landings, there's water, there's, cyclops and, robots.
But you got to think it's the perfect kind of entertainment for that moment in time in history, right? Because you got the space program. Kennedy's telling everyone we're going to get to the moon, And then you've got the Vietnam War, and like that's making people sad and angry, and all they want to do is just turn on the TV and disappear.
1965, 5,000 Marine troops were sent to Vietnam, ending up with 500,000. People wanted joy. They wanted something to smile at, or they wanted something to. The kids wanted the idea that there was there was no end to possibilities of where they could be and who they could be by watching a show where we're up in space and where they're encountering all these amazing creatures and characters, and we had every character actor in Hollywood on our show.
That's amazing. 83 episodes. You must have had everyone. It must have been just a big party.
Party. Sure. And great actors, because the character actors are the lifeblood of a film. You can't do anything without having interesting people coming in and out of your episodes.
Can you imagine how many people? I mean, I don't think anyone's ever really tried to quantify this, but can you imagine like how many people watched Lost in Space and then eventually wanted to be in the aerospace industry in some way, shape, or form? Like, because it was a huge show. I mean, it must have, and it was the first. Like, think about the people who made Star Trek. Like, they probably watched Lost in Space, and Star Trek was huge. And they're still making movies about it, like 40 years later. And Captain Kirk, what's his face, the Canadian guy? Oh my God, I can't remember his name. Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk.
But William Shatner, the Canadian. Yeah.
Canadian, eh?
Hey, but think about how many, that whole era wouldn't probably have happened without Lost in Space.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I like and Batman and it was, well, we sort of copied Batman in the second year. The first year was black and white, and it's a very different feeling about a show in black and white. And then Batman and Laugh-In, and the whole cultural revolution happened, all during these other extreme events going on in our lives. And so, yes, I think that people needed to have this kind of entertainment and to have this kind of escape. And I actually went to Orlando and to NASA.
Oh, really?
Yes, with Billy and Angela. And I have to tell you, one of the great moments in my life was when people were coming out of their offices saying, "Oh my God, the Robinson family. We went into aeronautic engineering or space."
And everyone knew you.
They all knew us.
Wow.
And they said, thank you for giving us this light in our lives, so that we knew where we wanted to go in our adulthood, in our education, and that was a real eye opener for me, because it was I said, oh yeah, we changed, we helped people, we gave them some dreams,
during a tough time.
Tough time.
And okay, so you finished Lost in Space. You're on like the biggest TV show in that decade, in that era. How do you follow that up? Did you take time off? Did you jump right back in?
I had a child.
Okay.
And the greatest thing ever. And it's strange, because I'm not a real baby person. I mean, I know people like our friend Bob. He's a baby person, loves babies. But I think because I didn't have that experience when I was little, of being adored, and sometimes let's count the fingers and all that. Make sure they're all there.
Make sure they're all there, or even growing up with a little sister or a little brother, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And when I had my daughter, I could not believe that it was the first time I had ever felt that kind of love. Now, maternal love is different from romantic love, partnership love. It was so all-encompassing that it just filled me. And I said, now I get it. And
this is what everyone else is doing out there, having all these babies. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my marriage didn't work out. But and I became a single parent. But a couple of years later, I met a man who was the love of my life, and we were together 43 years. He passed away 8 years ago. But he was a great father to my daughter. But 6 months into our relationship, he said, he was a poor kid from Long Island, Kevin Peter Kane, Irish Catholic, and he had always had a dream of traveling throughout all of, he eventually took a bus trip from London to Kathmandu.
Oh, that's a nice trip.
Yeah. And that was when Afghanistan was still open, Soviet Union was still there. And so he told me that he was going to do that. He wanted to travel for a year. And I went, oh.
Oh, yeah, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I knew that the best thing for me to say is goodbye and have a good time. But we wrote volumes of letters to each other. And he came back. And no, we did take a trip to Europe. My daughter went to stay with my parents and in Michigan, and so we took a Eurail pass. We had a Eurail pass and traveled by backpack, and we wanted to kill each other by the end of. We did 11 cities in 33 days, something
that's
crazy,
crazy, yeah.
Too much. Yeah, and so I said to him, I've never been so glad to see the back of somebody.
So the Europe trip was before he did the overland trip to Nepal?
Then he did the overland.
Yeah. And you let him go by himself?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. And I couldn't have gone.
No.
And during that time, I did things like built a Japanese garden. I took all the carpet out of my little one-bedroom house, and I found wood floors. I refinished all the floors. I think I lost 20 pounds or something. You know?
There's nothing more Hollywood than setting up a Japanese garden in your backyard.
Oh.
I think there was an era where everyone had a Japanese garden, right? What was it like career-wise after you had your child? Because I think these days in Hollywood, like a lot of women really pride themselves on being working mothers. A lot of them are single mothers as well because relationships haven't evolved at all, and 50% of marriages still end in divorce.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, I'm just curious, whether that was something that you entertained or you you were really proud of, or whether you were just really focused on being a mom and you kind of put the career on the back burner.
Well, the beauty of show business is that I could do commercials.
Right.
And I did multiple commercials. I was Inga, the health spa lady. I was the Tab woman. I was the Tab commercial aired no, it was Dr. Pepper that aired on the
Super Bowl?
Super Bowl. Yeah.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, it was I did a lot of big national commercials, and I could earn good money. At that time, you could earn money doing commercials. But at one point, I thought to myself, I should be going to a job. And
no one thinks like that anymore.
No. I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't know what I was thinking.
You just wanted a 9 to 5?
I thought, well, yes. And somebody had told me that Frank Zappa's manager was looking for somebody to help him. So I thought, well, I'll be his assistant. That'll be interesting. Well, it turned out that I was answering the phone. I was going to the store, buying champagne. I was a gopher, essentially. And
so hold on, you went from being an actress, a lead actress on a hit television series, to being Frank Zappa's manager's assistant. You told me you did that backwards.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why I did this. I don't know why I thought that I was, I don't know why.
You just wanted something different.
I just wanted to try something different. And
what was it like being in the music business?
Well, wait, I was there for one day.
Geez, okay, I shouldn't have asked how long that lasted first. Yeah.
It was after when I was answering phones, and I answered the phone, and I said so and so, and I said, may I ask who's calling? And he said, Frank. And I said, oh, Frank, who?
And you were gone.
And he said, Zappa. I said, oh. I put the keys in a little cubby hole. I wrote a note saying, thank you very much. I'm out of here. And I went home, and I was, happy. I had to experience something else. You're right. And I thought I wasn't paying my dues, I guess, because life was too easy.
Well, that's, I mean, not a lot of people want to go back to a 9 to 5 after life is too easy.
And, I continued to do commercials, and I guess it was, I just wanted to taste something else. And that was, I thought, well, that would be interesting to work for Frank Zappa.
Did you ever get back into doing any big television series or pursue your passion for stage work?
I started a theater company with a group called West Coast Ensemble, voted the best small theater company by NPR.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, in L.A. And I worked my ass off there. I did everything. I cleaned toilets. I stage managed. I built sets. All the things I don't like cleaning toilets, but everything else I love doing. And I acted, and produced, and directed, and would audition people. And I'd have to say to the actor, young actor, "Have you read the play?" No.
But I'm cute. Yeah.
But I can do it.
Yeah.
And, and I'd have to give them lectures. And that was a really a good time in my life. My daughter by then was a teenager, and I probably should have been, chaining her or locking her in the closet, but she was beautiful, probably the most beautiful young woman ever, and had just this great charisma, and she was the star of the high school, and so I thought, well, she's on her path, and I'll do this theater company thing, and so that was pretty time consuming, all consuming.
So what was for you? What was more rewarding, or can it be? Can you compare it? Because maybe it's not apples to apples. Maybe it's apples to oranges because the time in your life was different. But what was it like being in a hit TV show versus running a theater company? Like,
it is apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't compare them.
No, you can't compare the two.
No.
I mean, I loved both, and I'm going to send you a clip that I wrote, this monologue. I'll send it to you so you can see a little bit of what I do. I'm part of a theater company now called the Ruskin Theater in Santa Monica.
Okay.
And it's just got to be one of the best theater companies, small theater companies in Los Angeles. And they do amazing productions and small productions. And they've just gotten a grant from Los Angeles to build, and Santa Monica, to build a new theater.
Oh, well, that's exciting.
Larger theater. And we'll be doing experimental theater, which we did at West Coast Ensemble. We had competitions for writing short plays, and the winner would be featured, and we put on the play. So we're going to do that at the Ruskin, and I've always taken class. I've never not taken class. And I tell all actors, do classes, take class, do community theater, first of all. Get on the damn stage, pay your dues, take voice, take movement, take dance. I'm still in dance class, 2 hours every Monday and Wednesday nights.
Still tapping?
Tapping my.
I just watched the Steve Martin documentary on Apple Plus, and there was one movie he did, something Pennies Over the Sky or something like that. Yeah, Pennies from Heaven. Yeah, and he has a whole tap dancing sequence, and he was talking about how he spent 6 months learning how to tap dance just for this one scene. And yeah,
tap it is hard.
Oh my God, it looks like a lot of work.
It's so much work.
Yeah.
And I'm a little arthritic. My feet, only in my feet and my hands, so I can't tap anymore. But I can certainly move across the floor and do bar exercises and floor exercises.
There's nothing like being on stage, like I did this tour across the U.S. a couple of years ago where I did events in small theaters all across the U.S. So I started in New York, and I went into Pennsylvania, Ohio, and then I was in Kentucky, then I was in Colorado, I was in Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, Colorado, working my way across, and I finished in San Diego. And I think I did 22 events in 27 days or something like that. Yeah. But I wasn't acting, right? I go up and I talk about myself, and I show some clips about crazy stuff I do all around the world, and then I do like a Q&A. So it's a lot of like having fun with the audience. They're asking me crazy questions. I'm giving them crazy answers, and it's a lot of fun. But I got the chance to go to all these really small, beautiful playhouses and theaters, 50 people, 75 people, 100 people, and they would fill them out. But just being on the stage, the wood planks, the creaky old theaters, and everyone's in the little chairs, and there's some magic there.
There is.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think I don't know, here in Hollywood maybe sometime when my youngest daughter Lena was at high school, they had Parent Day, right? So I'll do that. I was always the parent and all that. So I wrote a whole thing to young actors, that I was handing out. But they're all coming up. They don't want to read it. They want to say, I want to be in show business. I want to act. And I said, oh, here, read what I've, written.
Read anything.
Read something, anything. And people think that acting is easy. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's soul diving. It's finding the different people in you, finding the people that you observe, And actors, you have to be observant. You have to look at situations and how people react to each other, and you have to know yourself. You have to learn about yourself, and it's painful.
And blow yourself up every once in a while and put yourself back together.
Exactly. Oh yeah, exactly.
There's a huge movement in this town now where people are just taking like TikTok stars and Instagram stars and putting them into movies. It's just terrible, and they're not actors. Like, I have such a high degree of respect for acting, and I know I could never do it. I am not that empathetic to be able to understand another person's moment, right? Like, I'm me, and I'm just trying to get by, right? So being someone else would be really hard. But just taking these like Instagram and TikTok celebrities and putting them in big movies is ridiculous, because you can just tell right away they have no idea about any kind of, they're not connecting to any of the other actors on camera. Like, it's becoming a real problem, I think. I'm gonna get a lot of backlash for that, probably.
No, I don't. No, I agree with you. It takes not just life experience, but it takes looking into yourself and finding out and studying and accents and absorbing all of the different things that the playwright has given you, and your relationships with other people, and then learning all the lines and finally figuring, and then you, like, for me, I say during the process of figuring out who I am, I say, I'm like, God, I'm no clue. I cannot see the forest for the trees. And then wham, it hits me. Then all of a sudden it's like a light goes on, and I say, I am this character. I understand this person. I understand this woman. I mean, even in improv, that's another thing people should be doing. Everyone should be doing that. You should be doing that. Oh, well, you probably do. But everyone should be doing improv. There is such joy in having the mantra, yes.
Just yes to everything.
Yes to everything. And you build on and you build on and you build on. Well, actors, in creating a character, we do the same thing. That's the process. We build on and build on and build on. And all of a sudden, bam,
It's
boom, you're there.
Well, the Groundlings are here, right, in LA. That's one of the big ones. Yeah, I love them.
I studied with Gary Austin, the founder of the Groundlings, for years. In fact, I even studied with him. He asked me to join him with the Deaf West Theater.
Oh, wow.
And I worked with them, the greatest actors of all time, because they have to be in the moment. They cannot be anywhere else. They have to watch. They have to be a participant.
And they have to react fast.
Or absorb it fast. Anyway, so Gary Austin was a dream. He was brilliant. And his wife took over his class after he passed.
Oh.
And Wendy McKenzie. Anyway, improv. It's oiling the machinery. You have to do all of that, and it's not just saying, oh, I can just get up there and do it. It's because the playwrights like David Mamet gets really pissed off at actors if they go off the script. If they go off his writing. He says, it's there. It's the way I want it. If you're going to go, wow, no. You do my first word with wow in your head, and that's, so you're serving the playwright, and then in exchange, you're serving the people you're in front of. And that's the beauty. That to me is the beauty of acting, is that, like, I've written a couple of short plays. One was a nun who, as a nun, you're not allowed to have any connections, emotional connections to anyone else. And I wrote about a nun who takes a novitiate under her wing and becomes this mother-daughter thing. And the novitiate finally says, no, I'm leaving. And the heartbreak. But it's that, and then I wrote another short play about a woman who's a homeless woman who sits in an abused shelter. And they allow her to stay there while they go out to lunch. The staff goes out to lunch, and a woman comes in, and I recognize her as being another church thing, as being a part of a church where I sit in front of to get money on Sundays, and I've seen her abused by her husband in the car, and in their car, and I call it hunger, because I'm trying to talk her into sitting next to me and move over, and she says to me, "What do you know? You're an old, hungry, woman from the streets, homeless woman." And I tell her there's different kinds of hunger. So anyway, acting has given me the understanding of behavior and of the heart mechanisms that we all have to somehow figure out. And
yeah, it's a great journey, isn't it?
It's a great journey. It's a wonderful journey.
It's okay. So let's backtrack a little bit. So you got a 15-year-old daughter. You're running a theater company. You're doing commercials. And what happened? Or where did that theater company end up? Where's your daughter? Did she make it through her 15 or teenage years? And did you get back into film and television, or did you stay on stage?
No, well, I did both. I did commercials and I did theater. Lot of theater in different venues. And
did that pay back in the day? Because I know now there's a huge difference, I think, between people who work on stage versus people who work in film and television. I think the film and television salaries are quite significant if you're at that top level. For the rest of them, it's still quite hard. But it definitely dwarfs what people can make in theater. And LA is not a big theater town. It's not like Broadway.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can't make much money in theater here. Now they have to pay the actor. And small theater companies are suffering because of that. I mean, because they have to pay everyone, and it's a pittance compared. I mean, if I had earned the money when I did Lost in Space that people are earning now, I would never have to work again.
Right.
And I don't get nothing from syndication, and it's somewhere in this world, all
the time. Yeah,
all the time.
Yeah.
And I had told Paul Peterson, who was a child actor, and we were going to fight it, and fight the production companies or the producers or the studios who are the ones who own the properties.
Mm-hmm.
And but we got nowhere.
It's hard to fight the studios.
It's hard to fight the studio.
But even 1% of equity on something like that would be worth millions of dollars.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But we get nothing. And so we do conventions. I started doing conventions.
How was that?
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
People weren't too creepy? Everyone was pretty...
I think there was one creepy guy who, wore a wig and a trench coat, believe it or not.
Oh, Jesus, that's stereotypical.
Oh, my God. How could it be any... Yeah, really. I looked at him. I said, what? And he followed me.
Oh, that's not
no, around the country.
Oh, that's really not good. I'm sorry.
But I would tell the security, and and he would stay. He would stay, 10 feet away or 20 feet away, whatever it was. And that was the only time that I've ever had any problems. No, I did. I had one guy who wrote to me on my Instagram. One of them.
This would have been recently in the last 12, 13 years. Yeah.
And I'm going to use some foul language.
Yeah, you can do that.
But he called me a Nazi cunt.
Oh, wow.
And he said he hoped I were dead, and it was awful. So I wrote back to him, and this is the truth, that my two brother-in-laws were in the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I wrote to him, I said, my two brother-in-laws are in the FBI. I'm going to forward your message to them. And just, if there's a knock on your door, I wouldn't answer it.
And that ended that?
That ended that.
Yeah.
Never heard from him again.
It's not nice having that kind of attention.
No, but that happens now to so many people. What are they called? They are docked. I mean, so many people, where your address is revealed. And I mean, there's so many people. and politicians and actors, and you have to be really careful about your political bent, and I've been told, don't, whatever you, by casting people, whatever you do, don't talk politics to anyone or religion or any of that. And so I don't.
Or international wars.
Yeah, no, or international wars. I would. Believe me, if I feel that I wasn't in danger or my family wasn't in danger, and that's what they depend on, and that pisses me off.
But you know what's fucked up now, and I'll use some bad language too, because I can't let you have all the fun. But it's so funny. Like when I was in university, I learned something called critical thinking, which means like, you take a topic and you learn about that topic from a 360-degree point of view, and you learn how to defend both sides of the topic. And then maybe if you're lucky in a coin toss, you get to defend the side that you actually believe in. But sometimes you have to defend in a debate the side that you don't believe in as equally. So you have a respect for both sides of the coin, right?
Yeah.
And now no one has any respect for anything at all. So you can't even have a conversation with someone that you don't agree with anymore, because it gets so heated. And it's like, no, that's what I believe. I'm right. Nothing else matters. And then the debate's over, right? You've lost reason. And I feel like the whole world is like that right now. But there's generations of people like you and me who debated, who learned about how to argue, how to have an argument, a respectful argument about various, and all that is just out the window.
There's no thoughtfulness anymore.
I want a refund from my university. Critical thinking should no longer be taught at any university because no one's using it.
There's no grace.
There's no grace. That is the best way I've heard it described. There's no grace.
And dignity.
And especially dignity.
Yeah, no dignity. I want to scream at the television. Stop. And I want to write, on Facebook and on all the different sites. Stop the ugliness. Stop. Because it's not getting us anywhere.
You should just send, anytime you're mad at someone, you should just be like, go watch Lost in Space.
Yes. There you go.
That's the cure to all anger and frustration. Yeah. So, okay. So, I mean, where did your career kind of shift? Like, you like being a single mother in Hollywood must have been tough, but then you found the man of your dreams, but then he fucked off to Kathmandu for a year. So then he came back. So that was great. And I'm glad he came back. But, like where was it? Where was this balance between like trying to have a family, trying to raise a daughter, have a husband, and also still be a relevant actor doing work that you wanted to do?
Well, my husband was an attorney, and he was he started in antitrust. And then went to elder abuse. He wasn't abusing elders. He was.
Thank you for making that clarification.
But he became a plaintiff's elder abuse attorney. And it was my great privilege to be his partner and to help him with that. And I continued theater. And classes and commercials, but my life was pretty much directed in being a partner with him, mm-hmm. and supporting him in what because there was very little money in elder abuse law.
Okay.
And even though he came from a poor family. And had done well in antitrust, and he went to Harvard Law School on scholarships and funding and student loans, and working at Jones Beach every year, cleaning the beach, not a lifeguard. He was so incredibly driven to serve, and that's why he went into elder abuse law. And because he wanted to make a difference. And so that was, being his partner throughout those years was really what I did. I wanted to support him in whatever. And I have to tell you, it was an ugly, ugly practice. It was it's elder abuse, starvation, dehydration, being beaten up, bed sores, not being, you get the picture. And, terrible pictures of sores and, and I held him up.
That must have been hard too. And I've read there's so much financial abuse as well, like where children take control of their parents' fortunes and then treat their parents like shit.
Right.
And
they put them in nursing homes with 1 star.
1 star.
Yeah. And there's, there are up to 5-star nursing homes. And, and he really worked at it. He promoted it. He did lectures on it. He tried to get young attorneys to go into elder law. And so he got cancer, and we worked stage 4 throat cancer. We worked through that.
Mm-hmm.
And his doctor, he completely recovered from it. And his doctor said to him in front of me, he said, "You're either a miracle or you're an alien." I said, "I think I know the answer to that." But he was determined to get over it, and so I was, and our daughters, and we all came together on that, and
well, that sounds like that was the key to being successful with overcoming that treatment, right? It's just the support and the love around.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. And it was a difficult time, of course, but and you don't always recover, but you as long as you know that people around you are holding you up, and going back to Lost in Space, that that was sort of the secret of that, what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You hold each other up, and throughout all of theater and movies, and you're not the prima donna. You never go on the set. Jonathan Harris, who played Dr. Smith in the show, it gave me a huge life lesson about how to treat people on set. You, as I said, I always, you come ready. You know your lines. You know where to hit your mark. But most importantly, you know everybody on the set. You know their names. You know their children's names. You know their wives' names. You bring them gifts for their anniversaries and their birthdays, and it sounds so Pollyannish, but you can't, as we were talking about, you have to have grace, you have to have dignity, you have to treat people the same way, and it's ridiculous to think that you can get through your life and not do that, and not get karma back.
Bad karma's a bitch.
Bad karma is a bitch.
No, for sure. I think a lot of that's really lost these days. Like I talk to a lot of young actors and people in film and television industry here in this room, and then also in my private life or professional life outside this room, and that kind of elegance or that dignity, that emotional sophistication is really missing, I think, these days. Like people just want to get ahead at any cost. They don't mind burning relationships, as long as they still have their social media fans. They can treat people like shit. Like it's become very strange. Like you can be famous, you can be rich, and you can still be nice. Like it doesn't have to be like a black and white situation.
Well, it's social media. I'm glad that I'm really. Years ago, I was saying, the phone shouldn't be allowed in the classroom. Get them out, and start relating. Everybody talks about being at a restaurant and seeing 2 people on their phones. And I was out to dinner with a friend, and we were trying to figure out what their people's relationships were at their different tables. And 2 people were, it looked like they were on their first date or something. They were young, beautiful people, and they were both texting, and my friend said, well, they're texting each other.
Totally missing the moment.
Totally missing the moment.
That's how you know they have no idea about acting, because you can't miss a moment like that.
No, you can't. But and AI, we talk a lot about that in the business now. And I was just reading about, Betty Davis said something about special effects being so impressive. And she said, well, in my day, it was the actor and the music that brought the special effects. And without us, everything was dead.
That's the truth.
And that's the truth.
Yeah.
You have to, there's no one going to replace, nothing is going to replace the heart of the creative person. Nothing. And I don't care whether, and I think that people who are involved in AI will agree with that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think just the media's maybe making up a little bit too much about it. And of course, I think it's going to have a lot to do with I think it's going to really speed up animated movies, I think, because I feel like the graphics and the way that they're going to be able to generate that much faster, right? But I think like nothing will replace the theater or live action movies.
Yeah, and also, I mean, AI is wonderful for research. I mean, how many jobs will be eliminated, but then new jobs will be formed, created, and out of that need. And well, when I was very young, I read a lot of science fiction, and Isaac Asimov was one of my favorites. And he was very prescient because he talked pretty much about AI and about computers taking over. And, the short story was called Let There Be Light, because everything had been eliminated except this one mega computer. And everything was silent, and then all of a sudden it said, "Let there be light." The computer said. So, I think about that now, and about what we're looking at in with AI. But I don't think I think that the light was for me a metaphor for humanity, and of course, the ever present.
Yes, always.
Always.
How have you felt the city's changed, since as you've kind of evolved through your career? I mean, you've seen Hollywood really change dramatically, and you've seen every genre of film become, I think you kind of nailed it, right? Like, I think we had Westerns, and then we had space movies, and then maybe we went back to Westerns when Clint Eastwood came around. And then we had the Muscle Boys, Schwarzenegger and Stallone shooting and blowing everything up in the 80s. I grew up in that era, and then in the 90s, things have changed again. I mean, you've seen this town grow up in a lot of ways. I mean, what's kind of your impression? Has it developed into something that you're excited about, or has it just become a lesser version of its former self?
What I find interesting is that, I mean, there's so many venues now that you can watch. It's overwhelming. I mean, I don't watch that much. And people will say, "Oh, did you see such and such?" And I said, "Well, I have Netflix, and I might have Hulu, but
but I'm not sure."
I'm not sure. And my daughter says, "Well, you have Prime, don't you?" I said, "Well, maybe. I don't really know. I don't know. I'm just too busy doing other stuff." And
that's a great reason not to watch TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the difference is that aside from that, there's so much material out there, which is a good thing. More work for actors, more work for writers, more work for technical, talent. But that there's just too much, as we were talking about communication, the personal side of communication, and the movies that are being made. I want to see movies like The Father. Wow.
That's with Anthony Hopkins, right?
Anthony Hopkins was brilliant in it because it touches on experiences that we're all going to encounter at some point in our lives, and the moments, the golden moments that, like, there's one part in the movie where he's introduced to a new caregiver who's a young woman, and all of a sudden he becomes this young man again, and it's so charming and so insightful about how people with Alzheimer's or dementia, how they have those moments, and how we have to honor these people and take care of them, and embrace them. And it's like a child going through stages in the beginning. It's that circle of life that, if we're going to throw away the elderly, how dare we? How dare we not complete that circle with them? And that's why I was, so supportive of my husband doing this. And that was 24/7. He worked 18-hour days. But Hollywood, on the other hand, is, you can only see so many action movies where they're all the same. You go,
like the Marvel movies and you get all these comic books. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all the same. And they don't thrill me, but, and people love them because they're escapism and that's okay.
Well, people like me are screwing that up because we grew up with all those comic books, right? So we grew up with Spider-Man, we grew up with G.I. Joe, we grew up with Iron Man. So it really is like my generation of the kids who grew up like late 70s, 80s with Stan Lee and all these comic books. So Hollywood's just playing to my generation right now. But it's kind of embarrassing because I'd much rather watch Anthony Hopkins or Helen Mirren actually act.
Yes. And Westerns are coming back.
Yeah.
Yay. Oh, I hope so. No, because they're always tales of the old of what we're actually going through. I mean, nothing changes really.
Kevin Costner just came out with a new Western. I'm really keen to see it because he self-funded it and there's a whole story behind it. And I want to definitely catch it because I've loved his work forever.
Yeah, I have too.
Did you ever see the movie? This is totally random, but there's a movie called Beginners, and it's with Ewan McGregor and who's a great actor. And then, who's the lead actor? He plays his father. He won an Oscar for the role actually, and I can't remember his name. He passed away a few years ago. Beautiful, beautiful actor. And anyways, his wife dies, and then he comes out as gay to his son, and then he gets cancer and goes through and he passes on. But his son gets to witness this, like 1 or 2 years of his father being openly gay, even though he was married to his mother for so many years, and he was kind of in the closet hiding it. And this relationship between the two of them, and it's like he really gets to see his father for who he really was. And the father he grew up with, I can't. Someone's got to help me out here with the actor's name. But it's called Beginners. I'll send you a link to it. It's absolutely spectacular. It's one of my favorite movies to this day.
Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. Yeah, and it sounds exactly like the things that we should be seeing because of the human connection.
Yeah.
I was just watching A Gentleman in Moscow.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet.
It is. Ewan McGregor is just an eyebrow thing.
Mm-hmm.
Tells everything, and it's a story about dignity, about the individual, about how they can suffer through so many different issues in their lives, but still have the grace to treat other people with this, with this loveliness that he does. There's something I didn't even know who it was. I said, "Oh my God, who is this actor?" Oh, it's lit so beautifully, and the time of the film is in the early 30s, and of World War II, and it's really Stalin and comes in, and it's just it's a period piece, but it's absolutely worth watching. And it's not shoot 'em ups. It's all about how one person can make a difference in this world. Yeah.
Now, I like Ewan as an actor, but I don't know much about acting. But I actually really liked his motorcycle trips. I don't know if you did. He did all these motorcycle trips all over the world with his friend Charlie, and I watched some of them. And I've done motorcycle trips too all around the world. I made television shows about them as well. But I've always been a big fan of his because of that. And then because of that, actually, I started following his acting. So I got into his work a little bit in reverse.
Have you read the what is it, The Art of Motorcycle Riding, or?
Maintenance.
Yeah, The
Art of Motorcycle Maintenance or something like that.
Right.
I read Ted Simon's book, which is Jupiter's Travels, which was probably the first big one. Like this whole romanticism idea of like riding motorcycles around the world and meeting people and exploring a country on 2 wheels instead of 4.
Yeah.
Like I bought into this a lot, and I rode a motorcycle all the way around China and India and Brazil. Yeah, I've done these trips all over, and it's changed my life. Like I've just loved exploring the world like that, stopping, meeting people, feeling the different weather, the climate.
Yes.
Everything changes. It really puts you in a moment of being in the present, which I've always loved, and I feel like just living in society every day, like sometimes that escapes you. Like we're all just kind of doing the same fucking thing all the time, and we're not catching it. But this allowed me to really catch it, and of course we made a TV show about it, and we get to share it with people, and it's been wonderful. Yeah.
Well, I've trekked 5 times in the Himalayas. Brilliant. I've been to Bhutan, Nepal, India,
Yeah.
up in the and I have the same feeling about and in Indonesia, and what I got from that is that it was sleeping on the ground with rats going by my head.
That's always fun.
That's what. But it made no difference. I mean, I was experiencing how I would never have. I mean, I wouldn't be living in a hut in the mountains in Nepal, but it made me honor other people's lifestyles.
Isn't that important?
It's so important.
Yeah. I think people who don't understand how other people live are totally missing the point of being alive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And especially people in other countries, like America, the United States is not the only country in the world. Like you got to get out and see things, right? I've always said like, and I think Europeans travel a lot, and Australians and Canadians do pretty well. But I always thought like the world, the United States is the lone superpower, right? So everyone cares about what happens in the United States, and we live in the United States. But I always thought like the world would be a better, kinder place if every American, if they chose to go to university or not, whatever, but they take a gap year after university and they travel the world for 12 months. And they have to go to 12 countries in 12 months. They get to choose. There's a government grant, or maybe Warren Buffett could chip in, or one of these billionaires, right? And I just feel like the world would be such a nicer, kinder, more gentle place if all of the English language decision makers in the world, which are basically here, the UK has some, but not as many, but like this country really drives everything. So if you take, all these future leaders and make them go and do something like that when they're 18 or 19 and see the world and live in a hut and understand the needs of people living with less than they have, like I just feel like the world would be a way better place.
Were you talking to my husband?
No, but
His trip for 12 months on a bus and camping at different various areas. He came back a changed person.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we were walking on the beach, and he found a $20 bill. And I said, "Oh, that's nice." He said, "No, this belongs to somebody else." And he started asking people. I said, Kevin, you're going to say, "Did you lose a $20 bill?"
Exactly.
But his brain was rewired,
Oh, and once you think that people can live in Nepal for a month or 2 or 3 on $20.
$20,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not just a hamburger and a Coca-Cola or whatever in Santa Monica.
Right.
No, it's crazy. So where are you now in your career? I mean, do you said you still take dance every Monday. You're still with a theater company. Like you're still an actor to the absolute core.
Well, I've written a children's story.
Oh, so now you're writing it. Oh, you wrote some plays.
And I've written a children's story called Birgit's Dream. And I'm going to cry. It's...
We can change topics if you want.
It's about a child, Birgit, me,
mm-hmm.
in the orphanage at 3.5 years old. And it's a delightful story. It's filled with love and hope but it's about what every child needs, and that is to have unconditional love and safety.
There you go.
And that's it starts with I live in an orphanage. My name is Birgit. I live in an orphanage with many other children.
Oh, so you wrote it in first person?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I wish that someone would take me to a beautiful big house, and then and it's all about sun. It's about flowers. It's about a cat.
You have to have a cat. You have to have a
I have to have a cat, and the cat's in every picture, by the way. Swapping, she's taking a bubble bath and the cat is swapping at the bubbles, swiping.
Both are fine.
And anyway, and the parents gently put her into her bed and pull the covers up. Mom reads, and by the way, she sits in her mother's lap and listens to the heartbeat.
Same things you remember, yeah?
Mother reads to her, and she says, please read to me one more time about Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, as her eyes close. And then they take her to the bed and pull the covers up, and then the last thing I see is they're silhouetted against the window. The moonlight is behind them, silhouetting their figures, and I go to sleep dreaming about cows flying over the moon.
That's very sweet.
And then the last picture is of myself, Birgit, with my parents, and because the cover is a little girl reading this big book. You see just the top of her and her little feet and her little hands, and the cat looking out from the book, and the last picture is my parents, my adopted parents, looking over my shoulder, and I have this big book, and I'm pointing to something, and they're lovingly looking at me, and so anyway, that's
lovely.
good, and that's the picture, and dreams, and I'm grateful that dreams really do come true.
Well, that's nice. I mean, you had to. At some state, like it addresses your life. Yeah.
And exactly, people keep saying, "When are you going to write an autobiography?" And I say, "I've written it here in this children's book, and I want this to be my legacy. I'm giving a percentage of it to save the children, and I cannot bear to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And children in the world, with children in this world.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
It's pretty terrible. Can't bear to think that they're separated from their parents. Cannot bear it.
It happens all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
And so my book is my legacy for them.
Well, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Because you've had a very unique experience.
And I'm doing the art now. I'm a painter.
Oh, really?
I paint.
You paint too?
In fact, no, I was watching something about M.C. Escher, and my paintings are similar to M.C. Escher in that they go from negative to positive. But in this book, I do oil pastels and different layers, and I scratch. So I'm trying to figure out how to exactly represent Birgit's dream. But I want it to be lyrical. I want it to be light. I want it to be just filled with flowers and cats and rabbits and, birds and
all happy things.
All happy.
And when do you think that'll be finished?
I'm trying to finish it by the end of the year.
Okay, well, that's very ambitious. Writing a book and also doing the artwork for it is a huge task.
I'm almost finished with the mock book.
Mm-hmm.
So and then I know if I take it to a publisher, they'll want to do their own artwork. I don't want them to. I want to do my own art.
Spoken like a true artist. No one fucks with my vision.
So with me, Marta, Kristen, Kane.
Absolutely. No, it's great. I mean, to be able to, to be able to tell the story and control the writing and the artwork, and then how you publish it, and then how you sell it, and how the proceeds get sent to where you want. Like that is art. Yeah. You want to control the thing from A to Z, and that's your vision. And everyone else can just take a hike.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And I can always self-publish, but I think because I have the story of my own life, and as you said, this represents my whole life. And I think that, I think I can sell it in that way.
I already see you doing a lecture tour across the U.S. talking about how you came to, there's so much garbage in the news every day about immigrants coming to this country and ruining it.
Yes.
And here you are, an immigrant, and you've lived your best life.
That's right.
And you've given people who watched you on film and television, these dreams of space travel and all this kind of shit. And not shit. I mean, it's like super important stuff. But it's fictional, right?
Yeah.
But you were part of a movement that put those ideas into children's heads that then became working, NASA engineers.
There was a realm of possibilities.
Yeah.
And that's my life.
Yeah.
It's I've been so blessed in so many ways.
I think that's a message that people really need to hear again these days, because I feel like there's so much. We've gone so far in the wrong direction that I feel like a story like yours and, maybe articulating it through this book and having the chance to publish and promote the book will probably be a really beneficial thing, because it'll kind of give people hope again. Like, I feel like people have just kind of lost themselves along this way. And then here you come in maybe with this wonderful story of your journey and how America changed your life. And then people start fucking remembering that they're living a great life.
Yes, and that people actually were interested enough to adopt, to take on someone who could have been, a lot of trouble.
Who didn't speak English.
I mean, I have a friend who she works for, she's an accountant of all things, but she's also a documentarian, but she's just adopted. She just turned 50. She looks like she's 20. Hate her. No, I love her. But she just adopted a child from Colombia.
Oh, wow. That's brave.
An 8-year-old who is flourishing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I live in a trailer park, right? It's a community. It's a neighborhood. I mean, you actually know your neighbors and you party together. And so people have embraced this child in this community. And that's what my book is about. You embrace that child. They are the most important.
I think that you touched on something here. I think I don't know when this changed, but like when I was a kid, like I kind of grew up in a little bit of a community. Like there were lots of kids on the block. We all grew up going to each other's homes. We all knew each other's parents. We all were at someone's house at some stage. You only had to call 3 or 4 places before you figured out, where your kids were, right? Like all the parents on the street all kind of like raised us in a like we had our own parents, but we were kind of a community, and that was nice. And then we started moving a little, and that all got kind of lost. But I feel like now, no, neighbors don't talk to each other anymore, and kids don't play with other kids anymore, and everyone's kind of growing up in this little silo of a family and not having any engagement. And I just feel like we've lost all of our community.
Yes, absolutely. And that when I drive into my park, I'm away from all of this craziness of the traffic.
Sorry for dragging you into the city today.
But the calm that I feel that when I'm driving in,
that's priceless.
Is priceless. And my neighbor is Vernon Wells, the great actor, Vernon Wells, and his beautiful wife Grace, and she teaches yoga. I mean, she's amazing. Anyway, and then those are on one side of me. The other side is a woman who taught sociology, sexology at university, Northwestern, started there, and had her own TV show, and then behind me is an amazing writer, and she's been teaching writing to people forever, and she's an Egyptologist as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, amazing. And then the corner, there's a fireman and his wife who have this most wonderful little girl. Her name is Cece. Very, very smart. I've never heard them argue. They are so full of love and caring for each other. And one morning I was feeling really down, and there's a garbage area at the end of our street, and I went to take my garbage out, and I was, I'd been sobbing all morning. And I hear a little voice saying, "Hi, Marta."
You can't have a bad morning when you got
You cannot have a bad one. And it changed. It just turned me around and said, hey, pick yourself up.
That's what the community does, right? I think like when you put yourself in a silo, or you put your family in a silo, or we kind of, I feel like now we're more isolated. There's 8 billion people on the planet, but we're more isolated now, maybe individually, than we ever have been. But when you can find like a real community, there's always something that's going to make you smile. There's always someone that's going to make you laugh. Like, you don't have to live in your emotions in the moment and have it drag you all through the day, because you're connecting with other people, right? And I think that's something we're seriously losing. Yeah.
Well, I walk my dog, and I talk to this person and that person, and I mean, they're just, they say, hi, how are you doing? Well, good. Did you know that such and such is, going to be playing at the clubhouse, and yeah, no, I didn't know that. Like, yeah, come on, just bring a little something to eat. I mean, that has disappeared in many ways. I mean, I lived in my old neighborhood for 48 years.
Oh, wow.
And I barely knew my neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and I reflect on that now, and I find that to be so sad, because I lived in a beautiful neighborhood. Kevin and I bought the house for $30,000, and and eventually we built a bigger house on the property. But Kevin and I sort of lived in a bubble. We didn't reach out. I mean, we had friends, but it would have been so nice. We tried to get to know our neighbors. We invited them over, but they wanted nothing to do with us.
Yeah. It was all his fault. No.
I don't know why.
Mm-hmm. I love this idea of communal living. I moved to China when I was 22, right? So I lived in Shanghai, China, for 18 years, and Shanghai is a big city, 30 million people, and it was a mind fuck, because there was just so many people. Like, it was a lot. But anytime I had time off, I would go out into the countryside, and I would go up into the villages, and I would go all through the Himalayas, all through Tibet and stuff like that, because it was so close, right?
Yes.
And I just fell in love with like small village living and being up in the, at altitude in a small town. Everyone knows everyone else, kids running around in the streets, like, everyone's helping out, like there's someone on the street that's building their new home, and all the men go down and help them build the new home,
Yes.
And it's just such a different vibe. And here in LA, Beverly Hills, whatever, like, I don't know anyone. I don't talk to anyone, because you don't know who these people are, and we're all so protective of ourselves. Like, wouldn't it be great to just be in a place where no one gives a shit, and everyone can just have a beer and talk about their fears?
Because that's it. We're all fear-based. Yeah. Everything is, don't do this, because you're going to be taken over by the zombies. And a good friend of mine is Greg Nicotero, who does all the zombie thing. So never mind, Greg. Don't even hear that. But yeah, it's true. You feel that you dare not reach out, because somebody will hurt you, and that's a terrible thing to have to live with and through. And children. I was like you. My parents. We had 5 acres. My parents had a bell. Big bell that they pulled to ring. Said,
"Come home for dinner.
Come home. Come home. It's time. It's time." I was handing out my newspaper, trying to get money for it, and it was a community, and we played hide and seek at night, and and I would climb the trees, and I would. That's one of the things that I did love doing, was climbing trees, and we had apple trees, and just reading, and my father would call me and try and find me, and I'd pretend I wasn't there, but there was a kind of it enriched your creativity to have that experience. It enriched your life. It all this other stuff, when you're full of fear, it's like a roadblock. I tell my daughter now, who had just had some heartbreak, relationship thing, and I said, look, it's a hurdle. It's not just, but it's a hurdle. You know that you're going to have hurdles throughout your life. You do your best to jump over them, and you're going to encounter others. But in between those hurdles, there's a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And, Kevin and I both knew that one of us was going to survive the other.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, I thought life had stopped when he died. And it's been 8 years, but I'm finally met somebody who is interesting, and I'm excited to sort of venture into that, to see where it takes me. And it doesn't mean that I will lose the relationship and the love that I had for Kevin for 43 years. But it's time, But the hurdles are there, and the community helps you through those hurdles.
I agree, yeah. And I think without those hurdles, we don't really know who we are. Like I think that's where you really figure out who you are and what your strengths and weaknesses are, and how it's in those hurdles where your true character shows up.
Exactly.
Because if life is too fucking easy, like apparently it was for you in your late teens and early 20s, when you were on TV all the time and you were thinking, my God, this is too easy. I'm going to work for Frank Zappa's assistant. I need to make my life more difficult. No, but when life is too easy, you don't really learn anything.
It's true.
Yeah, you just fucking sail.
It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to give me a Tesla. My friend who lives above me, she says, I'm always looking down at you. But Leslie, she says, she has a game now where she counts how many Teslas in one, like in 5-minute period of time that she can count in Los Angeles.
There's a lot of Teslas,
20,
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So where do you see the next 6 to 12 months of you and your career and your life? Like, we know it's great now that we've had this understanding of who you are and the audience, and we know you now a little bit better. Where do you want to take your next 6 to 12 months of this journey?
My book. My book, and my daughter, who's Laura, who's doing extremely well. She had some real difficult times throughout her life, and she's awakened to to find that, hey, you know what, I can do this, and so I'm holding her up in that, and my daughter Lena, who I raised, she's my granddaughter, but I raised her, but sort of in a way co-parented with Laura, but Lena, she's having all these different transitions that, I'm trying to tell her it's a hurdle. These are hurdles. And so being a parent and being a writer, and I'm trying to establish a new friendship with somebody who's really, really, really lovely. And as I said, it's the first time in 8 years that I've found someone that I'm truly connected with.
Yeah, no, I think that's got to be difficult, right? I mean, I think, and I can only assume, you can correct me, but I think, if your partner dies, there's some part of you that dies too, right? And I think it takes a few years for that to like turn on again, and it's that part of your brain or that part of your connection to other people, right? And it takes time heals all wounds, but it does probably take
Well, the wound is always there. I mean, it becomes a scar, I guess you can call it that. And Rumi writes that the wound is where the light enters.
Yeah.
And I try and hold on to that. I will never not love, Kevin, and my part. This new interest has the same feeling, but his late wife, and once you acknowledge that, you sort of can go forward with your own flirtation, but that has to be said, and it doesn't. And people kept telling me throughout all these years of being alone that why aren't you dating? Why aren't you seeing somebody? And I said, I'm just not interested. And they said, well, come on, you're still vibrant and vital, and you should live this life, I said, but I enjoy my solitude, and it's okay. But, maybe the timing, it's all in the timing, isn't it?
It is too. And I think you have to be ready to receive the good timing in the right moment, and it's got to be the right person. And I mean, there's a lot of karma in that, but you have to be willing to let someone in.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's the secret.
I should not be giving people relationship advice. I'm sorry.
You've been a psychologist. You've been a sociologist.
I played them all on TV. No, I held no degrees. No, I a bachelor's in political science. So
maintenance.
For sure. But no, that's great. So what's the name of the book, and where do you think we'll be able to find it, or where can we learn more about you if we want to?
Well, I'll certainly be on Facebook about it, and Instagram, and but it's called Birgit, Birgit '(S), Birgit's Dream, and it's a love. I thought maybe I should change it to Marta, but no. But Birgit has a certain lyricism to it.
And it's your birth name.
And it's my birth name.
Yeah. And that's powerful.
Yeah. And I'm still Birgit. Birgit.
That's wonderful. Well, look, is there anything else you want to talk about today, or do we did a pretty good job of getting through?
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're the best interviewer ever.
I just try to let people talk, and pepper it with humor every now and then.
Well, that you do.
Well, thank you very much for coming by, and maybe when the book is out, you can come back and we can talk about it. And if it's not too emotional, we can talk about it. And
I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to talk about it when it's out. Out. How do you say it? Out.
Out. That's Canadian.
Out. That's a Canadian out. Kevin and I traveled with two Canadians for years. Teachers from Calgary.
Calgary, yeah. That's the West.
Yeah, it's the West, the Wild West.
It's funny though, but I grew up in Toronto, which is only 2 hours from Detroit. I grew up so close to Michigan.
Oh, I've been to Toronto many times.
And we used to,
beautiful city.
It's nice, right? But we used to have all these kids come over from Detroit and from Michigan to drink in Canada, because you could drink at 18 in Canada, but they had to wait to 21.
Yeah.
So we had all these university students just coming in and getting melted because they couldn't handle Canadian beer.
Oh no.
Yeah. Which is slightly stronger than American beer, apparently.
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't know.
I wouldn't know. I'm not a beer drinker.
No. Oh, I love beer. Are you kidding? A motorcycle? About the only thing you can get is a good beer.
Maybe
little communities there.
We'll see. I'm planning.
Beer.
I'm planning a trip to Argentina on the motorcycle in the fall. We're going to make another TV show. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I've had a really rough COVID actually. Because I was filming 250 days a year. And I was doing about 40 to 45 speaking events a year in 2019, and then it all just stopped. So that's actually why I've kind of moved here. I was in Dubai for COVID because it was kind of open and easy, but I've moved back here to try to get back to 2019 and try to get that level of work back. And it's been really difficult because the whole industry's changed and the way people fund things has changed.
Oh yeah.
So, but we're getting back to work this year, so that's some good news, because I've kind of had a 4-year semi-retirement in my prime, which has been an interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Well, you're doing a great job.
Well, I love this actually, because this has been something I'm going to keep up doing even once I go back to making TV. But I get so much joy and positivity from meeting other people and having this face-to-face conversation. And I don't do Zoom calls or I don't do Zoom podcasts. I need to meet people face-to-face. I need to have a human connection.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. There's something special to it.
Yeah, I was really pissed off when I had to audition, on Zoom or online. I mean, just, doing a video and having no contact at all with anyone, just sending it in.
It's pathetic, isn't it?
It was pathetic.
Yeah.
Meeting people is, and then they can give you adjustments, but you can't, nothing takes the place of just handshaking and saying hello.
Human connection.
Yeah. Human connection.
We need a little more community in this city specifically.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Well, Marta, thank you so much for swinging by.
This human connection.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And we'll definitely have you back when the book comes out. I'd love to promote it and look and just go through it with you in the whole process. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Be done.
So now we can go up here and people can see we are in the same room. We can shake hands.
Shake hands.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much for coming by today.
Thank you.
And we fade to black. This is the most important part of the whole thing.
Oh.
Look at